What's going on, people? Just wanted to drop off this segment of the news how I see it. Shall we begin with this article? U.S. surveillance of Americans must stop. Article from today. As you can see, when Edward Snowden revealed that National Security Agency had misused foreign intelligence surveillance laws to collect millions of Americans' phone records, the resulting public outcry eventually led Congress to ban the practice. In my humble opinion, it's still not banned and they're still doing it. How would Americans and their lawmakers react if they learned that the government was misusing these powers to access the actual contents of millions of Americans' communications without a warrant or even a factual basis to suspect criminal activity? This is outlandish. This is what they've been doing since the Patriot Act. Look, what people fail to realize, 9/11 set a precedent. After that and the Patriot Act was invoked, privacy was no longer a thing. It's just a illusion at this point. According to a recent government report, that's exactly what's happening. The Office of Director of National Intelligence recently disclosed that in 2021, the FBI conducted up to 3.4 million warrantless searches seeking Americans' phone calls, emails, and text messages using a law that, on paper, can only be used to spy on foreigners overseas. They violate that. Look, these one thing about these alphabet agencies, they operate outside of the law. The Constitution don't apply to them. I mean, they need to be abolished. I'm talking about, like John F. Kennedy said, with the CIA, torn into 1,000 pieces, all of them. That's just my humble opinion. The law in question, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, was one of the many laws Congress passed after 9/11 to expand the government's surveillance power. It allows the NSA to target any foreigners overseas and collect all of their communications as long as one of the agency goals is to acquire foreign intelligence. No warrant is required because foreigners overseas aren't protected by the Fourth Amendment. Of course, foreigners often communicate with Americans, and so the surveillance was bound to sweep in large amounts of what Americans think to say and write, and the government's purpose were to access that information, it would have to obtain a warrant. Congress therefore included two provisions in the law to help bolster its constitutionality. First, Congress required the government to certify that it did not intend to target Americans. Yes, they did. That's the whole whatever. That is that any acquisition of America's communication would be merely accidental, so they're telling them how to go about and cover it up, is what it seemed like. Second, Congress required the government to minimize the sharing, use, and retention of the incidentally acquired information. But over the years, these requirements have done little to protect Americans from warrantless searches. Information about Section 02 operation can be gleaned from official disclosure, court opinions, and a 2014 report by the Privacy of Civil Liberties Oversight Board, an independent government watchdog. These sources show that rather than minimize the sharing and retention of Americans' communication, the NSA regularly shares raw Section 702 data with the FBI, the CIA, and the National Counterterrorism Center. Pardon me there. And these agencies keep that data for at least 5 years. So do you understand what's going on here? But like I said, since the Patriot Act, privacy is nothing merely but an illusion. It doesn't exist. But this goes to show what these people think of its citizens. I mean, it just rummage through our stuff, evade our privacy, and keep the data for over 5 years. A lot of us are victims of this now, and we all know all about the FISA court and their dirty little secrets. Moving right along. In addition, each agency engages in the practice of searching Section 702 acquired data for America's communication. The FBI routinely conducts such searches in purely domestic cases having nothing to do with foreign intelligence, often at the assessment stage, namely before the FBI even has a factual basis to open a criminal investigation. This is just ridiculous. And yet, it's so hard to believe that targeted individuals are victims of this. This is crazy. In other words, having obtained the communications without a warrant by certifying that it doesn't intend to target any Americans, the government, as a matter of policy, wants searches that explicitly target Americans. The beta switch itself isn't news. What the DNI report reveals and how often these backdoor searches happen 3.4 million times in 2021 alone. The report notes that the figure likely overstates the number of Americans affected. Okay, blah, 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 blah. I think you guys get the point. So, yeah, these agencies are corrupt. They're exploring the Section 702, and the Patriot Act made all of this possible. And the FISA court just sit back and allow them to do this, break every violation protocol known to man, known to the Constitution, and no one goes to jail. And yet, in return, they still get to keep our data for 5 years. That's rich.